Good morning if you are listening from Brazil, or good afternoon if you are listening from Europe. It is now exactly 12 a.m. in Brazil and 4 p.m. Central European time. So, welcome to our third roundtable of ENRICH in Brazil. Third roundtable, where we will have the great opportunity today of meeting and speaking with representatives of two more wonderful countries of the European Union, Finland and Netherlands. My name is Felipe Casapo. I am the president of ENRICH in Brazil. ENRICH in Brazil is a innovation center that was created and supported by the European Union in order to accelerate and foster the relationship between Europe and Brazil for science, technology, and innovation. And it is our great pleasure today to have the opportunity of organizing this third roundtable, where we will speak with representatives of two wonderful countries, Finland and Netherlands, and also representative of some companies, a Finnish company, a Netherlands company, which are performing business here in Brazil. So one more great opportunity to listen to some tips, good practices, ideas, what are also the expectations and what are the challenges, right, of developing business right now. So today we'll have three panels. We will start with the country representative panels. We have the honor of receiving today Mr. Matti Lendin of Business Finland, who is a trade commissioner at Business Finland, and also Mr. Roderick Wolfs from the Embassy of Netherlands. He is the Deputy Ambassador in Brasilia and also the head of Economic Cluster Brazil. Then we'll have a second panel with the representative of the companies. So we'll have a Finnish company represented by Mr. Fernando Campos Passos, who is the managing director of Ponce, a Finnish company which is present and strong in Brazil. Then we will speak with Mr. Jean Mies, who is the president of ADN Latin America, a company from Netherlands, also well established here in Brazil. This will be our second panel. And of course, our third panel will be question and answers. So please feel free to put your questions on the YouTube channel or on the other channel that we may have in touch with us, so that we can receive your question and organize our panel, our Q&A panel at the end. So once again, welcome. Let's get started now with our first panel, so the country panel. I would like right now to give the virtual floor to Mr. Matti Lendin of Business Finland, Trade Commissioner of Business Finland. Thank you so much, Matti, for being with us. A great honor to have you here. And please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Felipe. Thank you for the audience. It's a pleasure to share some experiences, what I have collected during 10 years in this service in Brazil, helping Finnish companies to enter to the Brazilian market. I will open my presentation and guide you through that. Is it, Felipe, okay now in full screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It is okay. We can see your presentation.
Very good. So let's start with the kind of big picture that what is the Finnish business in Brazil. We are in the business-to-business segment, and our main products are specialized equipment and machinery for telecom, mining, pulp and paper, energy, and health providers. We also export services, paper, and fertilizers. The main part of the business is conducted by the subsidiaries, which have a turnover in Brazil, roughly 1.6, the latest official data, and probably around 2 billion euros currently today, employing 10,000 people. The exports from Finland to Brazil, they are picking up from the lower figures some years back, and they are now in a level of 700, 800 million euros a year. what we think is that the business will look like in the 6 to 2 years from now on, I believe that the export industries are particularly doing very well, agro, forest, and mining, and they actually enjoy a strong demand already today and increased margins due to the currency devaluation. We also see that the 5G auction next year will probably boost the investments in the telecom sector, in the operators, but also in the private 4G and 5G networks of the companies, which are being deployed in several sectors. We also, I would like to also mention that Brazil has the third largest private healthcare market in the world. And that operates very much based on imported technologies, which we believe to continue. Here is an example of the agriculture, which is a very large-scale operation normally in Brazil. What kind of challenges the European companies face when they plan and enter to Brazilian market, especially speaking about that kind of companies that we attend who provide technologies. The one thing that you will notice is that there's a high taxation of all the goods, locally made and imported, which makes it more difficult for the Brazilian companies to invest in world-class technologies. But the best companies do invest. Also, the import duties, which are roughly 9% after all the exceptions, make it a little bit more expensive to invest in the technology. But the main part is charged from the locally made goods also, and this is a common mistake among the companies. The cost of capital is quite high, much higher than in Europe, and the currency fluctuations make it difficult to plan for the operations. For this year, in the beginning of the year, €1 was 4.5 reais, and now it's 6.6. If you then plan a little bit larger operation, opening a subsidiary or acquisition of a Brazilian company, you will face with the fact that Brazil has one of the most complex tax systems in the world. There are actually about 60 taxes, and 37% of GDP is collected as taxes. Also, the side cost, the social cost of the salaries are high compared to many countries. They are 67% of the gross salary, and on top of that, the company, the employer, has to pay a private healthcare plan. And many people think that this social cost doesn't return as a benefit to the employees. Well, here are some examples of what the Finnish export credit agency, Finvera, does to help the Finnish companies in terms of financing. The buyer gets from his own bank loan to pay the Finnish goods, and the Finvera makes the guarantee for the bank. It guarantees the actual the foreign buyer and the country. There are support available for bonds. There's support available for producing the goods. And there are also support to convert receivables into cash. And this is all information from Finvera, which is our export credit agency and works with the similar fashion as the other agencies of OECD. So what have we learned how to overcome these challenges? I would like to recommend that focus on the what I call Class A customers, the best customers, domestic and international, and especially those who have a sustainable competitive advantage compared to the other nations. And these companies you can find particularly in the agribusiness, in mining, forestry, and offshore oil. And then you have to build your operation model so that it obviously attends all the expectations, and very importantly, have the proper maintenance by your company or third party. And this is such a big market that the end customers are used to being serviced in their own language, in Portuguese. So you have to do the same. In the point of view of the administration, you should pay attention to the taxes and do a professional tax planning before you start your operations. But do the planning within the rules to define your operational model. Otherwise, you may end up paying much more taxes than your competition. And in the smaller business volumes, I would recommend you to work through representatives, distributors, or integrators who have already the competence to work to handle the local bureaucracy in a cost-efficient manner, and only go to your own subsidiaries when your own business has grown to, let's say, 1 million euro or over. What we can see about the opportunities, particularly for technology exports, the fact is that, in my view, that in many sectors, most of the high technology is actually provided by foreign companies. It might be manufactured locally, like our companies do, large parts, or imported. There are very notable exceptions, Brazilian technology companies like the airplane manufacturer Embraer or WEC electric motors or software companies. Another positive side is that there are rarely any IPR problems, at least which have come to our knowledge. And the foreign-owned companies are treated exactly the same way as Brazilian-owned companies. And the promising sectors, I of course here show sectors which are familiar to the Finnish industry and which I know best. But I would want to emphasize that these 4 sectors have a competitive advantage, which will remain. So agriculture, forest bioeconomy, mining, and offshore oil. So probably over the cycles, the best companies in Brazil in these sectors will do fine and buy foreign technologies to keep up with the productivity. And other high technology users are telecom, private healthcare, and airplane industry. Thank you for your attention. And in the end of the session, I will also participate in the Q&A session. And now I pass back to Felipe. Thank you.
Thank you, Matti. Wonderful presentation. So glad to see all these opportunities linking to topics so important, such as health, for example. This is what we really need, because the 21st century will be the century of sustainability and well-being of the people. So really glad to see we have this opportunity of collaboration with Finland. So now we would like to hand over the virtual floor to Mr. Roderick Vos, who is from the Embassy of the Netherlands. He is the Deputy Ambassador in Brasilia and also the Head of Economic Cluster Brazil. Once again, Mr. Roderick Vos, thank you so much for your presence, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Felipe, and thank you also for this initiative. Goedemiddag, boa tarde, good afternoon. We understand we have an audience from all over the world. I'm based in Brasilia. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission and also the Head of the Economic Network of the Netherlands in Brazil. A network that is based not only in the embassy in Brasilia, but also at our Consulates General in Rio de Janeiro and in Sao Paulo. And we have 2 trade offices, both in Belo Horizonte and in Porto Alegre, and 11 honorary consuls spread all over the country. And especially for listeners from the Netherlands and Europe, many people coming to Brazil sometimes forget the size of Brazil. 210 times the size of the Netherlands, with a population of 210 million inhabitants. Inhabitants from the south of Brazil, which is highly developed, to the Amazon region, where people don't even know that Brazil exists. So there is a huge variety of peoples and of way of working. And that makes Brazil a very interesting and very challenging country. The next slide, please. The Netherlands has already for a very long time relations with Brazil, already since 1828, official relationship, diplomatic relationship, consisting of trade, good relation, far neighbors, although for many years the Netherlands and Brazil actually shared a border in Suriname, which was till 1975 part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And many Brazilians also know the period of Dutch Brazil, which was in the 17th century, a period of 30 years, with Mauricio de Nassau. Maurits van Nassau played an important role. And after the official diplomatic relations, we saw an influx of Dutch missionaries, but also many people who settled in Brazil, especially in the southern part of the country. You find what they call the Dutch colonies, very active in agriculture and horticulture, in cattle and milk, the usual Dutch products, and also in Dutch machineries being built here. The exports to Brazil are about 2.7 billion euro, and the imports for Brazil are 3.8 billion. There's quite a gap, and that's not surprising because many Dutch companies are settled in Brazil already for many years and have their own production in Brazil. For instance, Heineken beer is quite well known. It is not imported here. It is brewed here on several locations in Brazil itself. And many Dutch companies in the meantime found their way to Brazil. Some are already here for over 100 years, like Philips and Royal Dutch Shell. Others are of more recent date, like Unilever, Adyen, but also companies like DAF Trucks, Randstad, and the offshore SBM, Van Oort in drilling, building ports, and KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, which is operating here since 1946. And that also gives you very good modern connection with Brazil, because despite the crisis going on, KLM maintains its operations via Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And the Fortaleza operation has been temporarily halted, but we hope it come back soon. Many companies are established in Brazil, are part of the Brazilian establishment, working together with Brazilian companies, and are sometimes like CNA, household names that many people don't actually know that is the Dutch origin of the company. The Dutch network focuses on 4 sectors, that is renewable energy, agriculture, life science and health, and high-tech systems and materials. Renewable energy, of course, is a very growing new sector. In the coming 10 years, the 23 gigawatt of wind energy is planned and 15 gigawatt of sun investments are planned. So Dutch companies are active in that, and there is far more in that region to work on, apart from the more traditional offshore industry, where Dutch companies are already active, but there is still investments going on. On the agricultural field, we see Dutch communities playing an important role, and also the import of new technologies, because we see a growing pressure from Europe and other parts of the world on the Amazon forest, deforestation, environment policy, and sustainable agriculture is really the magic words to continue in Brazil. Also for the future to have access to European markets, and also for companies to buy products in Brazil, it has to be more sustainable. And with new technologies, and without cutting one tree, you can still enlarge your production and have very good products. Many Brazilian delegations at the moment go to the Netherlands to see what technologies are there available, like precision agriculture, but also new technologies of irrigation and using less pesticides. So that's a very important sector for companies from the Netherlands and from Brazil. Another one is, and our Finnish colleague already spoke about it, that was life sciences and health. The Brazilian market on health is really interesting. Philips medical system is already active for many years. And we have a market of about 45 million people with an above average income and wealth situation who make use of really excellent hospitals available in Brazil. And all other Brazilians have access to the free medical care in Brazil. So it's a very interesting market, and a much bigger market than many companies in Europe think. High-tech system and materials is another less known sector, but there you find sectors like precision agriculture and aviation. Well, the name Embraer was already there, high-tech companies, so there's good opportunities for companies to work together. The next slide, please. The future, companies continue to show interest in Brazil, despite the fact that the situation at the moment with COVID is not that easy. We hear from Europe that companies mostly have interest in their own European markets, maybe neighboring markets in the US and Asia. But we find that many companies do have an interest in Brazil, because Brazil is a country to stay with a long-lasting future, with many opportunities and a lot of developments going on. We should also not forget that there's a big privatization program underway in especially the infrastructure. Think roads, ports, and airports. And the Netherlands, Dutch companies play an important role to have a look in there. And there are many opportunities for companies from Europe to go there. And from Brazil, the other way around, is a lot of interest in the Netherlands as gateway to Europe. And we see, for instance, that Embraer is settled in Amsterdam. And later this week, we celebrated we will celebrate the first anniversary of Vale, who opened an office last year. We see that trade figures are going up, especially in agriculture and in oil. And as our Finnish colleague also said, the exchange rate between the real and the US dollar and the euro are very profitable for Brazilian companies to export. At the other hand, we see that the imports will be more expensive, and that combined with a heavy tax in Brazil makes it less attractive to import products from European and other markets. The next slide, please. The challenges we face are quite a few, and we always say Brazil is not for beginners. The country has indeed a lot of opportunities, but is not always very much accessible. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of official rules and regulations, and a lot of taxation. And it is not always easy for companies to find out what to do and where to do what. And another thing where many people have a different view is that Brazil looks very much like an informal society, but it is very, very much a hierarchical situation where people respect each other's roles in society. Being in time for official appointments is really important, and also showing respect for each other. The next slide, please. From the Netherlands, we can help companies coming to Brazil with the network I just said, our embassy in Brasilia, the consulate generals in Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and the trade offices in Belo Horizonte and Porto Alegre. But there's also for companies coming from the Netherlands, help possible via RVO, the Dutch Enterprise Agency based in The Hague. And they have several means of helping companies to find access to the Brazilian market. For instance, in new markets or markets which are in development, I'll give an example, the cleaning of the debris of the dam breaches in Minas Gerais, or the protecting of dams, of the tailing dams with the mines. We found consortia of companies having an interest in Brazil, and there is a possibility of the Dutch government helping companies to go to Brazil and to get access to the Brazilian market. Also, for the privatization of the airports, we organized recently a mission on the airports with Dutch aviation companies, together with Brazilian ones, to see which kind of possibilities are available in the Brazilian market for companies from the Netherlands. It's a very interesting market with a lot of opportunities in roads, railroads, ports, and airports. You see in the screen the link to RVO, Dutch Enterprise Agency. So in case you want more detailed information, feel free to contact them. And they have a Dutch officer specialized for Brazil available there to answer your questions. The next slide, please. The recommendations. Very important is not just to come. Sometimes Dutch companies have the idea we just fly in, we sign a contract and we do business. That's not how it works in Brazil. Brazil is a market which is interesting, has a lot of opportunities, but you have to prepare yourself well. And the relations between people are really important, so you have to invest in that. You also have to make a plan. If I want to come to Brazil, do I have the means to do that? I have to fly back and forth a few times. You first have to establish a contact, and then you can do business, but it takes time to do that. It's a very interesting process to do work on it. And sometimes the language is a barrier. Most Brazilians do not speak English, so you have to speak Brazilian Portuguese or have an agent who does that for you. And the language is not only literally the language, also the language that Brazilians don't really like to say no. So you have to really listen carefully what people say. If they are interested in something, it can also mean that they are not willing to continue with you. So please make sure that you have somebody here on the ground who knows how to interpret market ideas. Very important, and also the Finnish colleague said it already, the niche markets are very attractive. It's very difficult to come on the Brazilian markets on areas where you find already a lot of production or a lot of business in. But in case you are in a niche market, it's very good to work here. The other opportunity, of course, is to be much cheaper than Brazilian companies, but you have to really battle against high import taxes, and that makes it very difficult, and you have to fulfill many recommendations. The next slide, please. Yeah, be patient, a very important thing, especially coming from Europe. The pace of work is different. There's a lot of business you have to arrange, and not everything is done in one time. We mentioned already the red tape. It is quite bureaucratic. You have to fulfill many rules. And what you don't see, like in the Netherlands, for instance, that you have a package of rules together that you can fix it in one-stop shop. Here, you really have to go to alongside all the stations. So that takes a lot of time, and you have to sort it out. So the next point, hire a local agent, is really important, because they know where to go, what to do, and also be sure that the legal process is taken care of, because Brazilians like to go to court, and you have to be prepared that you follow the right rules. Things will take time, so that's something to take into account. And there are long lines of communication. In the beginning, I said already, Brazil is 210 times the size of the Netherlands. So physically, to get products from one side to the other side of the country, or from a production site to port, or port to your local shops, will take time and will take organization. And it is not always easy. Here we now having heavy rain, so the roads are sometimes not very accessible when it is really bad weather. So take it all into consideration if you want to do business. Investing in relationships is very important. Brazil don't do a job with a chair, as I always say, but they want to have to get to know you, to feel trust in you, to familiarize with you. So take your time to invest in that. If you have good relationships and a good agent, and you really prepared yourself well, Brazil is a very interesting market. And as soon as you have access to the market, you have access to a potential group of 210 million people in Brazil, and also access for part to countries in the Mercosur region. So that makes Brazil, for many companies, still, despite COVID, a very interesting market. In the coming years, we will see, just after COVID, a difficult time in the economy. We expect it will take up in the longer term. So it is interesting to be here on the market and to prepare yourself for the times, the better times, which are coming ahead of us. Thank you very much. And I'll give the floor back to Felipe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roderick, for this very precise presentation with a lot of tips and a lot of concrete experience on the ground that are so important actually for making things happen. And as you just said, Roderick, and we do agree with you, better times are coming. And I'm sure that, all this activity that is going on will even improve in the next month and in the next years. Right, so after this first panel with our country's representative, we will now switch to the second panel, where we will listen to some companies, one Finnish company and one company from Netherlands, so that we can listen a little bit to the experience on the ground also of the companies. So I will start with Mr. Fernando Campos Passos, who is the Managing Director of Ponce, a Finnish company. Thank you so much, Fernando, for joining us this morning, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. On behalf of Ponce, I'd like to say thanks for Home Business Finland and ENRICH for this opportunity to share a bit our experience here in Brazil. Well, let's go. Forestry machinery manufacturing. We are concentrated on sales, service, and manufacturing technology. Forestry Ponce solution. We are a global company. We are presenting 40 countries with 12, 36 dealers around the world. In Brazil, Ponce started the operation here in 2005. In 2006, we established our own. And for the past 15 years, we are quite well established where the forest business is located. 5 own places. We have also here in Brazil a kind of hybrid in our own business-owned subsidiary and also some dealer network. Why Ponces in Brazil? Well, here's a quite interesting information from global regarding to the coverage in the world. As you can see, Brazil is the second biggest country regarding. If you break down this 4 billion hectares, half million are here in Brazil, which represents 12%. From this 12%, 1 are planted forest. That means 90 million hectares planted forest in Brazil. And this is quite strong business here in this country. Talk a little bit more about the planted forest in Brazil. We have also some advantages regarding to the productivity and the rotation of the forest. As you can see by these figures here, you can see that the eucalyptus rotation is nearby 6 to 7 years, and pine is a bit over 20 years. And when you see about per year, Brazil is very strong in the competitiveness compared to the other countries, which make this country very strong for the agriculture and also for forestry business. In Brazil, we have several companies inside this forestry segment, and they are focused in different areas, as you can see here. We have also papers, solid wood products, and also the panels, quite strong here in Brazil with big companies in each segment. Some challenges or improvements. Well, this is something very particular from Brazilian forestry market. The market is really which brings good opportunities, but also higher requirements. Here, the forest companies and also agricultural companies, they usually own the forest, the machine, and the pulp and paper mill, which is quite different from abroad. And also, the machines here running over 5,000 to 6,000 hours per year. And it's quite challenging and demanding operation from forest business. As mentioned before, Brazilian tax system is something that we really need to take care. And also, specialized labor availability is something to take in account before coming to here. Our hint regarding to this challenge also was mentioned before. Long-term view is very important. Takes time to, especially when you talk about big global long-term view, business view is quite important. You have to establish in order to then be confident to give you space. Deep tax study was mentioned by both previous presentation. It's very important to take in account before you define the business model that will be operating here in Brazil. The tax can change quite a lot if you are coming with your own operation or with dealers. The way that you are bringing the goods from Europe or from abroad to Brazil also change the taxation. And it's very important if you have a similar product manufactured in Brazil, quite many actions here that need to be taken account before defining the business model here. When you talk about the labor, we do recommend this kind of a partnership with technical schools. We have it here as an example, Senai. Senai is a strong technical school present in whole Brazil. It's very good way to come and partner with technical school in order to prepare your labor. And then let's go to the local association. I mentioned here Finland, Finland Business is also good a way to come and listen in the active companies that are here from several segments that can share experience and support the journey to come. Well, that's it from my side. Thank you again, Felipe, for your.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fernando, and congratulations for all the brilliant work that you have been performing at Ponce. And we are indeed very glad to see all the partnerships that you mentioned. You mentioned the partnership with Senai, you mentioned the partnership with the local Chamber of Commerce and the important Brazilian actor. This is, I think, a very valuable information for all of those that want to settle in Brazil, to know who are the actors of the innovation ecosystem, education ecosystem, and get in touch with them. So thank you so much for your time. And now let's switch to our last speaker for today. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Jean Mies, who is the president of Adyen Latin America, a Dutch company. Thank you so much, Jean, for your presence here today, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Felipe, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me share my screen.
We can see your screen.
Wonderful. Let me just put it on presentation mode. I hope everybody can see this. So let me start. Again, hello, everybody. My name is Jean Mies. I am Adyen's president for Latin America. And what I want to do now is I want to, first of all, present our company to you all. And then, of course, touch on the same topics, opportunities, challenges that we have found when we entered the market, and also how we have learned to deal with the challenges and build a business that is sustainable and growing well in the region. Let me start by talking a little bit about Adyen. So we are a global payments technology company that was founded in Amsterdam in 2006. The company was founded by a group of entrepreneurs who believed that the payments industry was lacking innovation globally, especially for international and global businesses to grow. And this is why these entrepreneurs tackled this challenge, and I will explain a little bit better how this went about. Today, we consider ourselves to be the new chapter in payments, and I'll explain to you why in a second. So what has changed over the years? What has played an immense role in probably all of your lives is that technology has deeply affected how consumers buy. You probably remember not long ago, you would walk into any store and buy products that were available in this store. And if any of the products was not available in the store, you would walk out empty-handed and would have to look elsewhere to find the product that you chose. This situation has changed completely today because customers are fully in control of their desires, buying habits, and consumer desires mainly, because they can purchase whatever they want, whenever they want, and they're doing that more and more. And if something is not available in a store, this product or item will be delivered to your place usually in a matter of days or even hours nowadays. Hence, today, everything revolves around convenience, and payments are a very important part of the buying experience, as you all know. Payments need to be simple, convenient, and above all, they need to be safe. So the new tagline or the word of the hour nowadays is frictionless payments. And this is what we specialize on. Now, this is how we do it. I'm going to explain you briefly how the payments value chain works and how we have changed it and impacted it. If you look at the traditional value chain, you will see that it is composed of various elements that are necessary to complete a payment. And these elements, the services provided throughout this value chain, are usually in a traditional way provided by a number of companies to ensure that these payments are completed in a quick and safe manner. So to give an example, every single transaction that is processed from an electronic payment nowadays goes through the entire value chain. With items very important like risk management to make sure that your card, your payment method is not being defrauded or used by anybody who should be using it. And the big complexity here for companies all over the world is that the traditional value chain requires companies to not only sign contracts with dozens of different companies in many times in different geographies to be able to provide their services online mostly, and but also it creates additional cost and inefficiencies that are not desired in a very fast-paced and modern world that we have today. What we have done is we have revolutionized the industry by creating one single platform that performs all those tasks on any sales channel anywhere in the world. With this, we have dramatically increased the efficiency in the process by adding solutions that increase the conversion of any given transaction, but also by greatly reducing the complexity for international and global merchants mainly. So you have to imagine that any company that chooses to work with us integrates one single time with our platform and gets this full range of services that they need, not only locally, but also on a global scale in various currencies and so on and so forth. So, and this is really a game-changing technology that we have developed over the years. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our presence in Latin America. So the company itself today has around 20 offices around the world. We employ more than 1,400 people globally. Latin America is one of the main international business hubs, along with North America and Asia Pacific, and Europe, of course, our cradle. And let me show you a little bit of Latin America by the numbers. If we take a look at the region, today we count close to 80 full-time employees in the region. We entered the market in 2011, so a few years after Adyen was founded. And since then have been growing and expanding our scope quite consistently and steadily. Nowadays, Latin America, and that includes Mexico and Brazil, are responsible for around about 9% of the net margin contribution. And we saw in our last release, half-year release, that the region is growing by roughly 15% year over year in net revenue. Now, why is Adyen here? Why did we choose to come to Brazil in the first place? Well, first of all, the Latin American region itself is a very important and strategic one for many of our merchants. Today, we work with a broad range of customers globally, many of them very, very big and global companies such as Uber, Microsoft, and many others that we serve in different geographies. If we look at Latin America as an e-commerce market, that's where we started in, the expected volume over the next 2 years is of around 100 billion US dollars. If we look at Brazil specifically, Brazil is by far the biggest online market within the region. And the forecast for 2020, despite the pandemics, is of a volume of 90 billion Brazilian reais in online business by the end of this year. One additional aspect that is important to mention is that the entire region, but Brazil especially, has been benefiting from various favorable trends from our perspective as a technology company focusing on payments, like, for instance, consistent efforts to promote financial inclusion by the government, but also by the central bank. Also, efforts to promote competition in the financial services industry. And these efforts over the years have led to an increased transition towards electronic payments. So now more and more people in Brazil are using electronic payments. Of course, bankerization or banking penetration per se is still a challenge here, but we see very promising developments in the region, especially in Brazil. And to maybe give you a little bit of a flavor, last year in 2019, the electronic payments volume, credit and debit cards, has grown by 20%. And this is a consistent growth that comes from years already. But what we see is that the payments industry is still largely dominated by large banks, which by nature are not innovative players. This, of course, has also led to a scenario in Brazil and in other markets within the region of little to no innovation. And at the same time that this is a challenge, of course, it is a huge opportunity for us, because ultimately we are a technology first company and we are challenging the status quo. We are challenging the contenders of the market that did not do much for innovation in the recent history. So what we do specifically is we started by helping digital companies mainly to overcome some of the most fundamental payment challenges in the market through a technology first approach, which means that we have helped them to simplify payments, to increase efficiencies, to get better results in terms of conversion and approval rates in payments, providing more data for companies to make decisions, especially when they're dealing with customers that are not seen by them, that are acting and buying items in the digital space. Today we have gained, as I said before, quite a strong foothold, not only globally, but also in the region. And we're working with some of the largest players in the region. And of course, also with their regional peers and competitors that strive to be, at some point, one of those global and big companies many, many times. What we have done more recently is we have extended our scope to the offline world, so to say. So nowadays, we're also helping traditional retailers to improve their payments infrastructure in the brick and mortar stores that they have. Of course, these stores have been impacted strongly globally because of the pandemics, but we see that many companies have used this opportunity also to invest in technology and to push digital transformation. And what we have done, using the same philosophy of having a unified platform, we have trailed and innovated also in this way, creating a unified commerce proposition, meaning that our technology puts us really in a unique situation or position globally, that we can allow companies to run all their sales channels online and offline on one single and totally integrated platform. Now, let's talk a little bit about the challenges. The challenges are very similar to what my colleagues in the presentations before already shared. In our case, since we are a technology company, definitely I would say the technological legacy is one of the biggest challenges that we help to solve here. Most of the companies in Brazil still rely on old infrastructure and technological legacy. This, of course, puts us in a position to, as I said before, challenge the status quo, not only of the market, but also of those companies. So being provocative to force them to acknowledge that technology can be a huge facilitator and bring growth dynamic to their businesses. This, of course, at the same time requires many times a strong change in mindset. So Brazil, as said before, is a somewhat traditional market, and many times it's difficult to change mindsets that have been there and fomented over years. So we see ourselves very much as an educator in the market, challenging, as I said, the status quo and provoking a change of mindset. Of course, in our specific industry, the more the online business grows, which is a global trend, and even more so here in the region, the more also does grow the amount of fraudsters, the number of fraudsters, and the number of fraud attempts. To give an example, during the pandemic alone, fraud attempts have increased fivefold in Brazil, which is, of course, worrisome, but shows that you need to have the right technology in place to protect your business. And last but not least, we always deal with what we'd like to call, or that is known in the market as jabuticabas. And this is just to provide a little bit of transparency. Jabuticaba is a Brazilian fruit that only exists here, and that has become a metaphor for the typically Brazilian challenges that any company coming from abroad will find here. So peculiarities that sometimes do not really make sense if you look at it from a global perspective, but that will be important for any company to solve to be successful here. In our case, we're talking about payments in installments, cash-based payments, and new payment methods coming up that we will have to tackle and help solving as we go, and as we have been doing over the years. Now, coming to my conclusion, what are the tips and recommendations that we would like to give? It's also very similar to what we may have seen before. First of all, be tireless, which means focus and persistence are key to persevere and to succeed in a market like Brazil. There's a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, there's a lot of uncertainty and fluctuation. And this can, of course, be a challenge to develop any business in Brazil. But our approach was always to look at Brazil and the whole Latin American region as a strategic one. This is why we always looked at the long-term objectives and always avoided to be distracted by things that we cannot change, for instance, bureaucracy. So deal with it, focus on the long-term business objective, and just go for it. As was also said before, Brazil is not for amateurs. So what any company needs to do is to understand the market and its rules profoundly and reflect this understanding in actions, in products and services. This was also extremely important for us as a European company entering in a market years ago. We needed to adapt our product. We needed to make it fit for the necessities of very large merchants here, companies that we work with. And last but not least, I think we have learned that bringing a European mindset, in our case, the Dutch culture that we represent very strongly throughout our team here in Latin America, can bring a lot of benefits. It actually works. And many times it's not very intuitive because Dutch people and the Dutch working culture is very pragmatic, very direct. In some situations, this might even come across as being rude in a culture like the Brazilian or the Latin American one. But we learned over time that talking straight, which is something that we practice in our day-to-day within our company and outside of our company as well, may seem strange, but it will bring you a lot of positive effects, because it will help you to build trust and respect in a market that values this very much. So today we have strong business relationships, many times because of that, because we always told the story how it really is. If we could not do something, we would tell our companies or our clients that we could not do it. If we could do it, we would be open and honest about it and would do it. So talk straight, it really pays off. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'll hand back to Felipe.
Thank you so much, Jean, for your presentation. And as we all know, digitalization, online payments are absolutely critical in the world we are living right now, not only for the pandemic reason, but because everything is getting digital, right? So very nice to see all that you've performed through the company, right? Thank you so much for your time. So now we are getting to our final panel for this third roundtable. So I would like to please ask all of you to switch on your cameras so that we can have a short debate now, a 10-minute debate with all of you. All right, thank you. So we have received some questions, right, on the YouTube channel, also on our direct channel here on Zoom. And I would like to start with the first question, which was directed to the country representatives. That is Matti and Roderick. Several questions on actually sustainable farming, and more specifically, what are the kind of incitements that both Finnish and Dutch collaboration government can offer for sustainable farming in Brazil? And the question was more focused on the Amazon question. So what kind of tips or instruments you have for sustainable farming companies, innovation, thinking about the Amazon in Brazil? So who wants to start? Yes, Roderick.
Yep. Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
I think it's a very good question. We see European companies boycotting products from Brazil because of the Amazon. So together with our team of the agricultural attaché based in Brasilia at our embassy and the Ministry of Agriculture in the Netherlands, and also with some other organizations in the Netherlands, we try to look into, for instance, the land rights of people. That's very important. We find that many farmers don't have land rights, so that you cannot capitalize your land, you cannot invest in it, you cannot sell it, and you don't invest in it. So these are very small steps. Together with Brazilian organization, NGOs, we look into that to improve the land rights of people. The other thing what we're doing, and mentioned that also in relation with high-tech system and materials, is what we call the precision agriculture. So how can you, on those big farms, use fertilizers, use water in such a way that you can have a better yield per square meter without cutting more forests? A third thing is what we're doing. We help farmers by cutting less of their trees. We have a pilot project together with Norway, by the way, to help farmers not to cut the trees and to maintain a larger part of nature. We have funds for that in the Netherlands for some of the projects. We have seed money. We work together with universities, also in Brazil, and with the University of Wageningen, to see what we can do to improve that. So if you have very specific questions, please drop me a line and I will contact you with our agriculture counselor who can help you further on that.
Okay, thank you, Roderick.
Matti, thank you, Roderick. Matti, would you like to complement?
Yes, I'm very happy to say that our big brother in Netherlands, they are very active there, because I work strictly on the commercial side, so I don't know exactly that if our government has some incentives towards the sustainable forestry farming in Amazonas region. Our embassy colleagues might be able to answer. So in commercial side, we are very much we are focused on the planted forests, which are far away from Amazon and cover 1.2% of the country. So that's our stake in the forest industry in overall terms. But I think you're absolutely in a right topic. So I would recommend you to contact me by email. I will I contact you to the connect you to colleagues in the embassy who work with these projects in the Amazonas.
Thank you, Matti. Yeah, sustainability is a common challenge that we have to face. So we are really glad to hear that you have some instruments, opportunities, and possibilities on that sense. Now I would like to make the following question to our panel of representative of the companies. So we had some question on the extensive geography of Brazil. Brazil is a very big country, and you have mentioned that in your presentation, you have to be very focused on where you want to develop your business. So I'd like to hear your considerations on how you see the geographical challenges of Brazil, and what do you think about developing your business further in smaller city, in not only the big cities such as Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo. What is your view on that? Who wants to start? Fernando, please.
Our business policy is not in the big cities. I can guarantee to you. We are usually a bit far away from big cities. Regarding to the big geographical challenge, it is a challenge, but as we mentioned quite a lot regarding to the tax system in Brazil, depending on your business, like forest business, our business, we must have a local subsidiary in the state where we are working. Otherwise, these taxes is a barrier to operate, centralizing in only one place. And this is something, let's say, mandatory, depends on the business. You must establish your own subsidiary inside the country, different states. As I showed, we are in more than 89 states with own company or dealer or partners. And that's especially because the taxation, and again, in our case, we are far from the big cities, and we have to have this strong coverage to be close to our customers here.
Yeah, I can maybe portray. I can portray a contrast to what Fernando said, because our main business is actually in the big cities. Historically, as I said, we grew our business in the online sector, and then of course the main cities are where our public, our end consumers are actually sitting. But as I also explained, we are now also working with brick and mortar, meaning that we are working with large retail stores and chains to implement our solutions within their stores. And then of course, we need to stretch out our offering also into smaller cities and wider parts of the country. This will come. It's still an ongoing and very initial phase that we're going through. But I completely agree with Fernando on the point that the biggest challenge there is really the taxation. That you need to find a way to navigate this very complex tax scenario across states that exists in Brazil, especially if you're shipping products, physical products, into different regions of the country. So this will definitely be the big challenge for us to solve over the next years.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. We still have time for a little more questions. So we have some questions also about collaboration in Brazil with research centers and universities. So what are your experiences in developing partnership in Brazil with research centers and universities? This is an open question for all the panelists. Who wants to start? Yes, please, Roderick.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very good question, because in the Netherlands, we work also with a triangle between government, companies, and universities, research and development institutes. It's very important that you work close together. So I mentioned already University of Wageningen, that's the agriculture university in the Netherlands, but also other universities work together with universities in Brazil, for instance, in São Paulo, to see how they can find new ways to work together. We also have, as the Netherlands, an agreement with the university here in Brasilia, just to see what kind of knowledge is available and how can you use the knowledge available in Brazil, for instance, on agriculture or offshore wind, to see how you can help companies to invest in those sectors. And well, sustainable was mentioned several times. The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are very important to move things forward. The knowledge is available. Companies do want to move in a certain direction. And if you work together with those universities where the expertise is available, you can really make steps forward. And from our side, we promote that. We have an innovation counselor actually working in our Consul General in Sao Paulo who promotes that, who has those contacts on life sciences and health, on high-tech systems and materials, just to bring universities and companies together, not only from in Brazil, and not only from the Netherlands, but where possible together to improve output on knowledge and on business opportunities.
Thank you. Very nice to hear about it. Who wants to give
Maybe
more
I
information, experiences? Yes, please. Jean?
Yes. What I want to share is that we, at the current moment, do not have any formal partnerships with universities across Brazil. Of course, we have our development hub for the region in São José dos Campos that is very well known for its technical university, ITA, right? And this is where many of our employees that today work in São José dos Campos are from. So bringing this knowledge into our company. What we have done more recently is we are engaging more and more in activities that have a social impact. And one of the organizations, NGOs that we are supporting is called RECODE. RECODE is an NGO that is backed up and supported by also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the interesting side of it, and the reason why we chose to support this foundation or this NGO, is because it provides, let's say, coding and computer programming education to young people without the financial means to get a specialization. And for the world that is developing right now, this is really groundbreaking and very important. So in a way, we are supporting this NGO as well, because at some point, we will also have the possibility to form the professionals that will maybe end up working for us in the near future. So this is our way to contribute with this ecosystem.
Yes,
Philippe, if I may. Also the collaboration with SNI. Yes, please, Matti.
Yes, very interesting question. So first of all, there is lots of academic cooperation between Brazilian and universities of Finland and in several fields. And but what I look particularly is that the R&D applied R&D development in industry, and we are our organization is also the financing agency in Finland, and there is room for more cooperation in that sector. And what is maybe most interesting is that there are some interest from the large Brazilian companies to develop solutions, competitive solutions, which don't exist yet for their needs. And also, for example, in the telecom, in the 6G development, Inatel is cooperating with the University of Oulu in this matter. But there are tens and tens of initiatives happening. It's basically in the academic world.
Thank you. Thank you, Matti. Applied research and development, yes, there are very strong institutes in Brazil, right? And there is Embrapi, which is quite important, and have collaboration, I believe, with Finland, with Netherlands, and other European country for applied research and development. Yes, please, Fernando.
I can share a bit our experience here as well. Actually, partnership with schools and technical schools, universities, is in our DNA of Ponce. We are doing this globally, strongly in Finland, but everywhere. And here in Brazil is not different. Our companies growing quite a lot. Actually, we start the year with a bit over 200 employees, and we will close next year by 500 people. And the only way to train these people to grow in this speed is partner. That's why we are now together, Senai. We will soon launch officially this partnership, but anyway, we are cooperating with Senai. There are also quite nice events. There is one event in Brazil called the Forest Talento Florestal. That by the second year, Ponce is one of the main sponsors of this event, with a lot of the universities in Brazil. Actually, all the universities that have forest engineer course, they sign to this event, and we are one of the main sponsors to promote this kind of actions here in Brazil as well.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, we have really an interesting cooperation between Senai and the companies for the development of people, right, of talents, as you just mentioned. So unfortunately, I have to say that our time is getting to an end. So I would like to give the floor once again to all of you for your final words. So we can just go on with the same order of the presentations. So I would like to start with Machi, please, if you can say your final words, your conclusion words.
Yes, Felipe, I want to thank you for ENRICH organizing this. I'm sure that in Europe there's lots of interest, but also lots of doubts regarding how to do business in Brazil. Hopefully we have been able to contribute today for that purpose. And that's it for my part. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Roderick, your final words.
Well, I hope not my final words, but in this webinar, thank you very much for the opportunity. And companies interested in doing business with the Netherlands or with universities in the Netherlands, please feel free to drop me a line at bra@minbusa.nl. Then you get an answer and we can see what we can do. But thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you. So it's not final words, but conclusion words, right? So your conclusion words also on your side, Fernando.
Hey, one more time, just thanks Finland Business to invite Ponce for this webinar and also ENRICH for the opportunity. And I'm also put myself available and hope to contribute with newcomers. Welcome to our country.
Thank you, Fernando. Jean?
Also from my side, thank you very much for the invitation, Felipe. It was great to participate. And I think that my final words in this context are Brazil may be a complex and not very easy market many times, but for us and for so many other companies, it has paid off the extra effort because there is still a lot of opportunities here. So embrace it and go for it. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. On our side, on behalf of ENRICH in Brazil, thank you so much for your time, for joining us today. Thank you to all of you who have watched our video today, our webinar today. It will be a pleasure to see you again in our next webinar with other European countries, talking more about collaboration with Brazil. So stay tuned on ENRICH in Brazil. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.